Imagine this. You've just arrived at your hotel, a grand, historic structure perched high above the Ozark Hills. Its white limestone walls rise out of the forest like a monument to the past, beautiful but full of secrets. Inside, the air feels cool and still, carrying the scent of lemon polish, lavender, and something older you can't quite place. Maybe must? The floorboards creak beneath your steps, each grown a testament to a bygone era. Sunlight spills through stained glass windows, throwing fractured colors across the marble floor. You pause for a moment, watching them shift, as if the light itself is alive and breathing. You step up to the concierge desk. The clerk hands you a brass key, its edges worn smooth from a century of use. "Room 218, he says. You follow the corridor, long and narrow. The chandeliers overhead hum with a low electric buzz. Halfway down the hall, something moves. A shadow, too small to be a person, but too quick to be a trick of the light. You brush it off, but have an uneasy feeling in your stomach. When you reach your room, the door handle is cool to the touch. The number plate gleams faintly. 218. Inside, the air feels different. Heavier. The bed is neatly made, but the sheets look too crisp, too untouched, like a photograph of a room rather than a room itself. Something seems off, but you decide it's just your tired eyes from a day of travel. You unpack and lay down, quickly falling asleep. Sometime in the night, you wake to a faint, rhythmic squeak. Then another. It echoes down the hallway, steady and slow, the sound of wheels rolling across uneven floors. You lie still, eyes open, listening as it grows louder. Then it stops, right outside your door. For a long moment, there's nothing. No footsteps, no voices, just silence. Eventually, the sound fades, drifting off into the distance like it was never there at all. You let out a breath you didn't realize you'd been holding and settle back into the sheets. Sleep starts to pull you under again when, eek! Something grabbed your foot. A feeling of cold fingers, with a touch firm enough to jolt you awake. You sit up, heart pounding, staring into the dark, but there's nothing there. Just darkness and the faint smell of old wood. As your heart thuds in your chest and you stare into your empty room, you wonder, how many guests have checked into this hotel, but never checked out? I'm back, and better than ever. Sorry for the very long break, but I had a pretty good reason. I gave birth to my beautiful little perfect daughter 17 months ago, almost 18. Truth be told, as soon as I got pregnant, I basically bubble wrapped myself, and that meant taking a break from all things dark and haunted. But it's December, the crisp air is calling, the spooky vibes are still strong with the barren winter woods, and I am ready to dive back in with y'all. Today, we're headed to one of America's most notorious hotels, a place where beauty, tragedy, and the supernatural all blur together. This is the story of the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and the Conmen who turned it into a hospital of horrors. So let's get into it. Back in 1886, the Crescent Hotel was built as a luxury resort for America's well-to-do. It perched high on a mountaintop in the Ozarks. It overlooked the valley below and also the natural springs that would become central to its fame. These weren't just any springs. The waters of Eureka Springs were thought to have healing powers. This idea should ring a bell if you listen to episode 1 on the Elms Hotel in Missouri. Locals believed that this mineral-rich water could cure a wide range of ailments, from arthritis to digestive issues. People traveled from across the country seeking relief, drinking the waters and bathing in them. They were convinced that the springs could restore both body and spirit, and the Crescent was perfectly positioned to cater to that hope. The hotel itself was a marvel. It was constructed from massive 18-inch thick limestone blocks and designed to last for generations. On May 20th, 1886, the Crescent opened with a grand gala. Hundreds of guests arrived for an evening of live orchestras, fine dining, and the kind of social elegance only the Gilded Age would produce. It offered every luxury imaginable: afternoon teas, ballroom dances, tennis and shuffleboard courts, stables, and bridal trails. The wealthy elite of the day came to escape city life, enjoy leisure, and bask in the promise of wellness. By 1908, the Crescent shifted gears, opening as the Crescent College and Conservatory for young women. During the school year, it educated young ladies. In the summers, it returned to its resort roots, welcoming guests once again to its grand halls. That college closed in 1924, and it briefly reopened as a junior college in 1930. Finally, it shut its doors in 1934 as a victim of both the Great Depression and declining tourism. Its halls, once filled with music and laughter, now held more memories than guests. A place of beauty, history, and hidden stories were all just waiting to be told. And it was into this quiet, fading mansion that Norman Baker would step, bringing with him a promise of healing, though what he offered would be far darker than what anyone could have imagined. Enter 1937, when Baker, a flamboyant radio personality, inventor, showman, and self-declared doctor with no medical training, leased the Crescent Hotel from its owners. He always dressed in purple, specifically lavender, drove a matching car, and promoted himself with a flair that few could ignore. Baker rebranded the Crescent as the Baker Cancer Clinic, promising miracle cures with no surgery or radiation, only his secret formula. Patients were told they could be healed of cancer, even in hopeless cases, and many desperate families believed him. But the reality was far darker. Baker's treatments were injections of glycerin, alcohol, ground up watermelon seeds, corn silk, and clover, substances that did nothing to stop cancer. Patients' tumors continued to grow, their pain worsened, but Baker insisted his methods were working. Some were forced to undergo repeated injections, sometimes daily, over weeks or months. Worse still, Baker used the Crescent as a full-scale laboratory. He experimented on patients without consent, recording their symptoms, side effects, and in many cases, their deaths. And when patients succumbed to their illness, Baker didn't always report it honestly. Bodies were moved to the hotel's basement, or the morgue, as he called it, and often placed on an autopsy table. Staff later recalled a strong stench, the sight of bodies laid out in the basement, and Baker's casual discussion of cases as though these people were little more than data points for his so-called research. Baker even performed rudimentary autopsies himself, not for scientific study, but to convince visitors that he knew exactly what he was doing. Reports suggest that bodies were embalmed poorly or stored for extended periods, which just contributed to the horror of his operations. Families were often left in the dark, receiving falsified death certificates or vague explanations as to the cause of their loved ones' deaths. Baker's approach combined the veneer of a luxurious health resort with the sinister reality of pseudoscience. Lavender-colored treatment rooms, polished floors, and elegant decor masked the suffering that took place behind closed doors. Patients came with hope, but many left only in body bags, their deaths hidden beneath the Crescent's historic elegance. Thankfully, by 1940, Baker's empire collapsed. Convicted of mail fraud for promoting his fake cancer cure, he served 4 years in federal prison. He was never charged with murder, only mail fraud, and after his release, Baker lived quietly in Muscatine, Iowa until his death in 1958. Following Baker's downfall, the Crescent sat largely empty. It was a shell of its former grandeur and a silent witness to the horrors that had unfolded within its walls. But in 1946, 4 Chicago businessmen purchased the property and began restoring it as a hotel once again. Then, in 1967, a fire swept through the south wing's 4th floor, causing extensive damage. In 1997, Marty and Elise Rolnick purchased the hotel and undertook a massive restoration. With millions invested, they brought back the Grand Lady of the Ozarks to something closer to her former elegance. Disturbingly, in 2019, an excavation behind the hotel uncovered hundreds of bottles containing Baker's so-called secret formula and jars of medical specimens, including preserved tissue and tumors. Ugh. Suddenly, these discoveries reminded the public of the dark history that had been hidden away for decades. Today, the Crescent is a fully functioning resort and spa, but it carries its haunted history proudly. It's known as one of America's most haunted hotels. Guests can even join nightly ghost tours where guides go into detail on its layered, eerie past. Speaking of ghosts, we're going to get into the spooks right after a short ad break. Hey, spooky friends! Let me tell you about something that helps me unwind after a long night of ghost stories. That's right, it's the Gpen Dash. It's portable, sleek, and hits so smooth, perfect for relaxing after a creepy adventure. And because I love sharing tools that make life a little better, you can get 15% off your own Gpen Dash with my special code, cannibalist.podcast15 off. Enter the code at checkout and you're all set. Clean hits, easy to use, and trust me, it's a companion that fits your vibe perfectly, even in the spookiest of places. Remember, cannibalist.podcast15 off for 15% off. Link in the episode description. Alright, thanks for listening. Now let's get spoopy! Because of its history, the hotel is rife with paranormal lore. Guests have reported cold spots, unexplained knocks, orbs of light, and voices in empty hallways. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the atmosphere carries weight. Ornate Victorian architecture, creaking floorboards, and a basement that was once used as a morgue. All of this adds up to a naturally spooky setting that draws paranormal enthusiasts and history buffs alike. Even the hotel's original construction left its mark. A few workers reportedly never made it off the roof, leaving whispers of spirits that linger to this day. Other frequent apparitions include a nurse in a white uniform that is said to have worked during the Baker Hospital days. She's often seen pushing a gurney or appearing late at night in the third-floor hallway. Even Baker himself is said to linger in spirit. Let's first get into one of the Crescent's most infamous paranormal hotspots, Room 218. If you've ever taken the ghost tour here, you know this is the room that makes even skeptics second-guess themselves. It's the one that keeps showing up in guest logs, paranormal reports, and whispered stories from staff who've worked here for decades. The story starts back in the 1880s, during the hotel's original construction. One of the Irish stonemasons, whose name was lost to time, was working high up near what would become Room 218. This Irish stonemason is fondly referred to as Michael these days. He supposedly lost his footing on a beam and sadly fell to his death, and his body landed on a spot that later became part of the floor in Room 218. Since then, guests and employees have claimed to hear strange knocking sounds, see flickering lights, and feel the unmistakable weight of someone sitting on the bed when there's no one else in the room. A few guests have even reported being shaken awake as if there was a small earthquake going on. Only they find that the room is still and silent. And one maintenance worker even said that he muttered he didn't believe in ghosts, and then his tools were thrown across the room. So I guess they showed him, right? But that's enough about Room 218. Let's head downstairs to the basement. This was once Norman Baker's morgue. Down here, the air feels heavier. Thick stone walls press in, there's dim lighting, and shadows seem to linger in corners. Apparently there is also an autopsy table, a real one, and a massive walk-in cooler that once held the bodies of patients who died under Baker's, quote, care. Today, the cooler door is welded open, but visitors and staff still report strange phenomena like sudden cold spots, faint moans, or just whispers in the dark. Maintenance staff say that sometimes when they're down there alone, the elevator will open and close on its own, even when the power is off. That's a no from me. No thank you. I don't want to see that. That would creep me out. But one of the more famous ghost tour guides once shared that late at night, the temperature near the autopsy table can drop as much as 20 degrees. It's as if the room itself still remembers the horrors that took place here. Some say the spirits here aren't trapped at all, they're just imprinted. What we're witnessing might not be conscious ghosts, but echoes. Residual energy left behind by moments of intense emotion. Joy, pain, desperation, they all soak into the very bones of a building. And it makes sense when you think about it. The Crescent was built on a foundation of limestone and quartz, minerals that many paranormal investigators believe can absorb and replay energy, almost like a natural recording device. It's an idea known as the stone tape theory. The belief that certain materials can capture emotional or traumatic events, and under the right conditions, those events can play back, like a haunting on repeat. But not all the spirits here seem like echoes. Some appear to have a mind of their own, interacting with the living in ways that feel intentional. One of the most notable examples is a woman named Theodora. She's said to be one of Baker's former patients, a woman in her 40s who came here for treatment. The legend goes that she died in the hospital, but her spirit never left. Guests who've stayed in room 419, where she's most often seen, describe a well-dressed woman in old-fashioned clothes appearing at the foot of their bed, calmly folding towels or tidying the room. If you acknowledge her, she smiles politely and then disappears. Hotel staff even report finding their housekeeping carts neatly rearranged, as if someone's gone behind them to straighten up. Damn. She's a good housekeeper with some serious dedication. Now let's get on to my favorite story, and the last one of the night. One of the most beloved spirits named to roam the Crescent is a cat named Morris. Morris the cat. During the 1970s, when the hotel was under restoration, Morris was a big orange tabby who practically ran the place. He greeted guests in the lobby, followed staff through the hallways, and became the hotel's unofficial mascot. Guys, he was even nicknamed the general manager. When he passed away in 1978, the staff were heartbroken. They buried him just outside the hotel, near the front steps, with a small headstone that still stands today. But according to many visitors, Morris never really left. Guests have reported feeling a cat brush against their legs when no animals are around. Others have spotted flashes of orange darting around the corners, or they hear faint meows echoing through the lobby late at night. Even today, employees sometimes joke that if the front desk bell rings on its own or a pen goes missing, it's just Morris checking in on his hotel. And honestly, in a place filled with so much tragedy, it's kind of comforting to think that at least one spirit here is just a friendly cat making his nightly rounds. So that's the Crescent Hotel, the Grand Lady of the Ozarks, where luxury and legend intertwine. From elegant beginnings to a twisted conman and restless spirits, this place has lived a dozen lifetimes, and it's still not done. The Crescent's beauty hasn't faded, but neither has the shadow of Norman Baker's fraud. His story is a cautionary tale about the danger of blind trust and the predators who profit from it. If you ever find yourself in Eureka Springs and feel brave enough, you can take the ghost tour at the Crescent Hotel. I, for one, have it on my bucket list. Wish me luck in manifesting a trip to this gorgeous ghostly hotel. Thank you for listening to Ominous Obsessions. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who loves a good spook. And make sure to follow the show so you never miss what's lurking around the corner. That's it for today's episode. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious. Goodbye!